Hey everybody, welcome to Gospel Lessons for Beginners. We are going to be doing a special question and answer segment today. I've got some questions you guys have sent in over the Facebook group and in the YouTube comments, and we're going to go through those today. We're going to talk about things like how to make chords, how to use pedal, time signatures, what is the number system, warm-ups, posture, all sorts of different things. You guys sent in some great questions, so we're going to jump right into those. And if you have any questions as you're watching the video, be sure to put those down in the comments. We aren't live tonight, but I will be doing another one of these sessions later on, so make sure to put your questions in, and I will make another list for our next Q&A session. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe. We go live every Friday night for gospel and every Wednesday for classical, and everything is free. And all of the sheets that you see up on the screen, I'll be referencing some tonight. All of the PDFs are totally free. If you join our Facebook group, you can just go in there and they're all in the files section. So we'll put a link for that in the description if you want to go check out the Facebook group. We've got a good crew of students in there who enjoy joining us on Fridays. So let's jump right in. Our first question says, when I see an F chord, what does the left hand do? So the person is asking when they see, I'm going to use this as our reference point tonight. We're going to be using this a lot. The person was asking, when I see an F chord, what do I do? So let's see if we can find an F chord here. Here we go. So if we see an F chord like this, my right hand is playing F, but what does my left hand do? So we cover this in lessons 1 through 4 in the PDF series. So if you want to go back and watch that, you can. But all you're going to do to start is you're going to play an F bass note in your left hand at the same time. Now, some people might be getting confused because later on in the lessons we do talk about having different notes on the left hand, but that's when you have something called a slash chord. So we see this one a lot. It looks like this, F over G, and this one you would play, the right hand would play F, and the left hand would play the G bass note, okay? So that one looks like this, so F on the right hand, and then G on the left, okay? But if you just see a regular chord, it just has one letter, you're just going to play, the left hand is going to play one letter, and the right hand is going to play your chord. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. So you can check that out. Lessons 1 through 4 go over our chords and adding in the left hand, and then as you go through, we give you some left hand patterns to try as well. Okay, so next question says, what type of posture should I use if I'm playing church music? I know that for classical there is, proper posture and things like that, but what do we do if we're just playing gospel music? Is there anything you could recommend? And absolutely. So it's actually going to be the same posture as you would if you were taking traditional classical lessons, and the reason for that is it has to do with the body movement that you have. So it has nothing to do with the style. It's to keep your muscles safe and to keep you from, injuring yourself, and also to be able to play faster. There are some tricks. So the first thing you're going to do if you're at your keyboard, the biggest issue I see with students is that their bench isn't high enough or low enough. So they use a kitchen chair, or they're using, their roller chair from their desk. And a lot of times what I see is students are way down here. I can't even do it because my bench is too high. But their arms are like this, okay? This is very bad. You don't want to do that. You're going to end up with issues physically, and you're also not going to be able to play properly and with good technique. So you're going to want to make sure that your bench brings you up so your hands are flat. So if you put your hands on the keyboard, you should be able to put a quarter on. That's what my teacher used to do. And it should be nice and flat. The other thing is to make sure that you're sitting the proper distance from the piano. So you don't want to be too close. A lot of people just naturally, you're a little anxious. It's a new instrument. You get really close to it. It feels more secure. But you're actually going to want to make sure that your kneecaps are just past the keyboard. Okay, so all of my thighs are back here. So a lot of people say it feels weird. It feels like I'm really far away. And it does feel strange at first, but the reason is it gives you more breadth to reach. Okay, if you're all tucked in like this, I call it T-Rex arms, you're kind of stuck in the middle and you just don't have good space. So if you sit back, you can reach. Also, your hands are going to be able to keep that flat that I was talking about. If you're too close, you're going to end up with those T-Rex arms again. And it's going to help you to move quickly. So piano is not just fingers. It's fingers, wrists, and arms. So the arms you need to be able to use if you're doing a fast scale, right? You're moving your arm as well, not just your hand. It's not just your fingers moving it, right? If you're doing arpeggios, your arms are guiding your arpeggio, for example. And we do that in the left-hand pattern sometime as well, that arpeggio thing I just showed you. So you're going to want to have space. Another thing is where you sit on the keyboard, on your bench. Now, there is some discrepancy on this. Some people say as long as you're sitting far enough back, it doesn't matter. I grew up classical, so it does feel a lot more comfortable for me to sit on the edge of my bench. So I have it so that I'm about, I would say, 2 feet away from my keyboard, and the bench is about 1.5 feet. Okay, so I'm sitting just kind of like on the edge of my bench, and then I've got all this space to lean forward, right? If your bench is closer to you, it's going to be under your knees, but that's more of a personal preference. Definitely make sure that you are far enough back so that your arms can be flat. That's the biggest thing. For beginners, advanced, intermediate, it doesn't matter. Make sure your arms are flat. You don't want T-Rex arms, okay? So I hope that answers your question. We're going quick tonight because we're not live. So I'm just going to go through the questions, try to get through as many as I can. And like I said, make sure to add more in if you have any questions in the comments, because I do have a running list on my computer. All right, the next question is, what is a metronome and how do I use it? So a metronome, it looks like this. This is kind of the old school style where you can physically see it's got numbers on it going from smallest to biggest. The bigger the number, the faster the clicking. So I'll show you on this one because it's easy to see how it works, and then I'll give you some options because not everyone's going to go to the music store and buy one of these. But all it does is it keeps steady time. So I'm just going to put mine down at 70. So those of you who watch our YouTube classical know I use 70 all the time. It's just keeps a steady beat. Okay. And then if you speed it up, if you make the number higher, it still keeps steady beat, but it's faster. Okay? Now, a metronome is very helpful if you're learning to play steady. So if we look at our example, I picked a song from Lesson 5, I Worship You, Almighty God. And a slow song would be the one I would recommend starting with if you wanted to try a metronome. You see we have a C, and we have 4 slashes here. Or 3 slashes, sorry. Total right there. We have 4 beats in total. So we'd go, I worship you. Okay, we've got our 4. But what sometimes happens is whenever we change into another chord, people will pause because they're like, I have to figure out where my hand goes. So this is what sometimes, usually, I'll say usually happens with beginners. I worship you, Almighty God. There is, and that's totally normal because if you stay on a chord, of course it's easy to just keep going. So where the metronome might come in handy is if you're finding yourself pausing in between chords, for example, and you're not able to naturally overcome it, the metronome might be able to help you check yourself to see if you're staying steady. So for example, maybe we'll try 70 again, which is my favorite number today, I guess. So every time the click happens, I will play a chord. Okay, so this would be every time there's a letter or a slash. I worship you, Almighty God. There is none like you. So that's actually a little bit fast for this song. Let's make it a little bit slower. I worship you, Okay, so see how I'm just matching it with the letters or the slashes. Now, a couple things about the metronome. First thing I would say is if you are a beginner, I would not start with the metronome. This would be something I would recommend if you're playing for a long time or you've been playing for a few months at least. You're getting comfortable with both hands and you're noticing the pauses. Then I would look at doing that, especially if you don't have a private teacher to check or if you're not in a group class with us. You're just on your own. You're using the YouTube. I would use this as a checkpoint for yourself to make sure you're not pausing, because sometimes people do and they don't even realize they're pausing, especially when you're singing yourself, right? Because you just slow down at the hard parts and speed up when it gets easy again. So I would say if you're a beginner, leave the metronome alone. Don't worry about it, because it's going to be more of a learning curve just to match yourself with the metronome than it is going to be helpful at the beginning. So I would say if you're, 6 months or less and you're still getting yourself comfortable, don't even worry about it. However, if you do want to try it, you could buy one of these ones. So you can get these on Amazon or music store. This is, like I said, this is the old school version. This is mechanical. It's got a little wind up thing. It's pretty cool looking. But your phone has them for free. So you can get metronome apps. So you can go in on the App Store, or if you're iPhone, Android, every place has them. They're free. You can find metronome, whatever, and you'll get tons of options. The other thing is if you go to Google, you can just type in the word metronome in Google and it will pop up right at the top with a slider bar. And I think it starts at 100. And then you can just slide it and press play. So you can use that on your computer, your iPad, or your phone. So definitely some great options if you want to play with it, but you don't want to purchase anything. And then if you do want to purchase them, there's all kinds of different ones you can pick from, and they all do the exact same thing. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. What is a metronome and how to use it? Next question says, how do I use the pedal? What is the pedal? How do I use it? So we've talked about this briefly in some of our lessons, but I'll just go over it again today. The pedal is what makes things sound smooth. Okay, so if you're playing with the pedal, you can hear it's connecting my notes. So let me show you just one note by itself. With the pedal. So it connects them so we don't have that gap of silence in between them. In an acoustic piano, what it's going to do is there is a damper that pushes on the strings to make it, as soon as you make a sound, that damper makes it kind of like holding a string on a guitar, right? It's like, oh, you're done with that sound. So on an acoustic piano, what it does is it pulls them all out so the strings just keep ringing, okay, until you put the pedal down. On an electric piano, it does the same function, but it's just all mechanical within the computer of the keyboard. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is, this is especially good on slow songs, which is why I picked this one, is you're going to want to hold down your pedal until you get to a new chord. So this would be the very first step if you're looking to try pedal. So if we look at I Worship You again, we have 4 C's. So I would put my foot down on the sustain pedal. That would be the one on the right-hand side. If you have more than one, if you have an acoustic piano, you probably have 3 pedals underneath. You're going to use the one on the right. If you have a keyboard, you probably only have one anyway, and that's the one you want. So just put your foot down all the way, and then you're going to play your 4 chords. I worship you. Once we get to the word Almighty, you can see that it changes to A minor. So as soon as I change my chord, I'm going to push that chord down. At the same time as I push my new chord down, I'm going to lift my foot up for a second and put it right back down, like this. Okay, so my foot's going like this. As soon as I push the sound on my new chord, so slow-mo here, my foot goes up and right back down as fast as I can. So what that does, if you were on like an acoustic piano, is it would bring the damper back down, it would cut all the sound, and then it would come right back out so that your next chord can flow out and keep ringing. The reason we want to do that is if we continue playing all of our chords back to back to back and we leave the sustain pedal down, it's like our strings from all the chords are still ringing and they start to mush together and it doesn't sound nice. We use the word muddy a lot. It makes it muddy. So for example, it would be like playing C chord and an A minor chord, and then what do we have next? F chord, and then we have a G chord. Let's see if I can do that. So we end up, when we get to the end of the second line, let me show you on the piano here. So we have a C chord, and then an A minor, and then we have an F chord, and then we have a G chord. So all of those notes, look, I've got, I think, 10 in a row here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 notes, all of them ringing at the same time. So what our ears hear is this, subconsciously. So what we want to do is every time we get to a new chord or a new slash chord, when we get, if you're up on those levels, you want to switch your pedal. So it would be like this. I worship you. Switch. To God. Switch. There is switch like you. Okay? So my right hand and my right foot are connected. As soon as it goes down on a new chord, my foot goes up, and then it can go back down. Okay? So that's the sustain pedal. You're going to want to start with a slow song and start very slow because it's a muscle memory thing. I need to get a t-shirt with that on it. Muscle memory. Because it's really, really important. Not with our hands, not just with our hands, but also with our feet. So I would go like this. I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then when I switch, 1, 2. I would go that slow just to make sure your foot is going up and back down in that first chord that you're playing. Okay? So I hope that helps, gets you something to try. It will take a few weeks for it to become natural. So I would set aside a few minutes every time you practice. Just do it, 2-3 minutes, practice it, and then soon it'll be second nature and you can do it without thinking. Okay? So that was the answer to what is a pedal and how do I use it. Okay, next question says, what would be a good warm-up? So in traditional classical music, we have whole books of warm-ups. But if you're playing gospel music, how do you do a warm-up? What would it look like? And I'm going to add on to this, what should my practice look like? I get that question from people as well. I don't have that on my sheet, but I'll mention that. So if we do a warm-up, then what should my practice look like and how long and what type of song should I do and how much should I repeat one song and all of that. So the first thing we'll talk about is when we first sit down at the piano, of course, we're going to make sure our bench is out, our posture is good, and then we're going to do some sort of a warm-up. So we've been working in the key of C so far this year. So we've talked about the C major scale. It looks like this. Okay, you can go back to one of our old lessons and you can find the fingering for that. But you can do that on both hands. Okay, and it's got, you're going to be crossing your fingers, you're moving up and down the keyboard. You could start doing it slowly. You could do one hand at a time, that's okay. And then you could do it faster. This is going to make sure we're loose, okay? Tension is bad. If you feel like you're kind of like this, that you don't want that. The warm-up is supposed to, warm your muscles up, just like if you're going to the gym. And then you can, speed it up again. Okay, if you get brave and you get bored, you can add in more octaves. The purpose of it is not to be good at a C major scale. It's just to get your fingers moving, to get your arms moving, okay, so that you're feeling more comfortable at the piano. You're starting to engage your brain. That would be good. Another easy one for beginners is chord inversions. So if you're playing a C major chord, for example, and you could do this on both hands just to warm up your hands, is you could practice all your inversions. So C, E, G, lift your hand, come down, E, G, C. Okay, I'm just showing you the notes, but you come down all together. Go up to your next inversion, G, C, and E. Okay, and go up like that. And this one, what you could work on is keeping your wrist loose. I know say keep it flat, but when we're moving, we want to be fluid. We don't want to be like this, when your arm is like a board, okay? That's going to cause tension issues later. So keep it loose, and you can practice that. It's also good to help you remember all your inversions. So that's a twofold one. That's a great one. It's going to warm up. So you could go all the way up the keyboard, and you can go back down. You could do your left hand. Okay, so just to get things flopping and moving and getting warm. That would be another great one. If you have our toolkit, we have a musician's toolkit. It's a free download, CanadaMusicLessons.com/toolkit. We have a bunch of left-hand patterns in there. The slow left-hand patterns would actually be another great warm-up for you. We have one called a bass octave, where it has your root, your fifth, and your root again, and it's just back and forth. You could play a song with that to kind of like loosen up your wrist. I worship you, Almighty God. There is none like you. Okay? So there's lots of little things in there you could try. Basically, anything that's slow, purposeful, you're paying attention to your posture, it's going to be a great warm-up, okay? There's nothing in particular that you have to do. If you're really studying seriously, of course, we would add in scales and technique. But if you're learning to play gospel, you want to play for fun, you want to play in church, you're not studying for an exam, I would say, just pick a scale or your inversions or a slow left-hand pattern and just let your body warm up. The next thing I would do in a practice session is I would pick a song. I like to eat the frog first, expression of picking the hardest thing first and getting it over with. That's my personality. I find it works for a lot of students as well, so you're not dreading it at the end of your practice, is pick the hardest thing first. So whatever it is that you're working on the most this week, pick that. So if you're working on right hand inversions, let's say this warm-up looked terrifying to you, pick a song, whatever song you're wanting to learn, and work on specific skills in that song. So if I was working on I Worship You, Almighty God, and I was working on my right hand inversions, I would go, I worship you. And every chord, I would go to a new inversion. Is that how I would play it in real life? Of course not. But that's what I would do. If I was practicing inversions, and I'm getting used to it, I would just pick a song that I wanted to learn, and I would use it as an exercise. Okay, so I would look, I worship you, Almighty God. There is none like you. Okay, and you could do that as slow as you needed to. So whatever, if you're working on 7 chords, make them all 7s, even though it would sound terrible, but it would help you practice. I worship you, You can see why we don't make these all 7s, right? So that gives you an idea. Just pick something. Don't worry about learning 10 songs. Just pick one song and add the skill that it is that you're trying to work on. If you are trying to learn a specific song, you could do that at this section as well, where you would go through it one hand at a time, learn your new chords, add it hands together. If it's a brand new song, that's going to take you anywhere between 10 minutes and an hour, depending on how hard it is for you. So I would start, one hand at a time, go through your brand new song, maybe take some time to listen to it on YouTube, come back, try the right hand, listen to it, try the left hand, try putting it together. It's just that work block at the beginning, okay? So that's what I would recommend. Start with your warm-up, then do your work block or eat the frog, whatever is the most challenging to you, do that right after your warm-up. And then after that, I would review other concepts. So this is assuming you have a long practice section. So after you've eaten your frog, review things that you did the week before. So if you already did inversions and you feel like you're pretty strong about it, and today you're working on 7th chords, for example, I would take that time, go back, review things you already know. Play a song using those skills, because you don't want to forget those either. And then the last thing I would do is play something fun. So it could be something that you're learning absolutely nothing, but it kind of puts the cherry on top at the end of your practice session. Run through your favorite song, sing on the top of your lungs, use the transpose button. Just do something fun. Your brain will connect that with your practice session. So next time you go to practice, your body naturally is going to want to do it more. Okay? So just to review, that would be warm up, eat the frog, review old concepts, play something fun. So that's a basic overview. Now, if you have 5 to 10 minutes of practicing, what I would probably recommend is just do a very quick warm-up, maybe just your scale. And then, okay, eat the frog for 5-7 minutes and then walk away. I know some adult students, and I have done this in the past, is I just don't have 30 minutes in a row to practice. I don't have an hour in a row, certainly, but I have to complete something by the end of the week for my lesson or for, playing in service, for example, and so I'll take 10 minutes at a time. So in that case, it's a very good idea to keep your music on your keyboard. Anytime you see, the kids are quiet or, I have a minute between meetings, just sit down, pick away at it, and then come back. That's also good. Another thing I say in the live a lot is any practice is good practice. You don't have to practice for an hour at a time for it to be effective. Studies have shown that practicing short intervals, so like a little bit every day or little bits throughout the day, is much better for your memory than doing a big chunk every 3 days. Okay, so don't feel bad if you're doing little 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. Studies have shown that it's actually going to help create neural pathways in your brain, so you'll actually remember it better. Okay, so that is what's a good warm-up and how do I practice? Very important questions. Thank you for sending that in. Okay, this is a shorter question. Someone had asked, when are you going to start teaching popular music on the live streams? And the answer to that is we kind of do already, but that's not our focus. So I created this channel because there's a gap on YouTube. So what I noticed is if you're trying to look up the newest, I don't even want to say an artist, but like CeCe Winans, for example, we're going to do her in a couple weeks. If you want to learn a CeCe Winans song and you go on YouTube and you go how to play blah, 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 blah on piano, enter. You're going to find tutorials on those popular songs. What I found when I was trying to learn this myself is I was going on YouTube, how do I play gospel? Traditional gospel music. And I found it was really hard to find things. There's some really great teachers that I did find, but they're all intermediate, advanced. So we've created this class series, online class, for people who have never played, who want that traditional gospel style. We do cover popular music in our request nights. So we did one in December, we've done a few over the summer, and I'm sure we'll do another really big one in December. That was really fun. So yeah, we do cover popular music in those. But in the actual class material itself, we're trying to focus on traditional gospel because, like I said, if you're looking for something specific, it's probably already there. There's a lot of it on YouTube. So if you are looking to stay with us and you want to, hang out with the school and you're enjoying the style that we do have private teachers at our school that do the Christian contemporary music or the newer style music. We actually just got a new teacher that joined us this summer. He is an expert in that field. And if you're looking for private lessons or, some sort of a group class to do that kind of music, definitely get a hold of us, CanadaMusicLessons.com, and we can connect you with that teacher. But for the free online course that we're doing, we're going to be doing the gospel. Okay, next question. Someone had asked on the Facebook group, can you show us some fills between chording numbers? And I think what she was trying to ask is if you're playing, you have a lot of C's in a row, what could you do to kind of fill it up on your right hand? So if that's not what you were asking, make sure you put another question in down below if you're watching this tonight. But I'm going to show you one that's really pretty. If you're in the key of C, you can use it almost anywhere. It's B natural. Oh, let me switch it so you guys can see a little bit better. Here we go. B natural, C, G. This one's really pretty. You can put it almost on any chord if you're playing in the key of C. So what I mean by that, it would be like this. I worship you, Almighty God. There is none like you. Okay, so obviously I'm overdoing it, but I'm showing you can add it. I added it on the C. Worship you, Almighty God. Here it is again on the A minor. There is none like you. And here I just did it twice. And then I added a D just to help me get down. So you can kind of see I'm rearranging those notes. So it's B natural, C and G, and then if you want to add an extra one, you could add in the D. So that one's just fun. You can play around with it. Right? See, it works everywhere. What I would recommend is you do it near the end of a phrase. Okay, for example, if you keep losing my mouse because it's so tiny with the drawing, right here would be a great one. Okay, you could do the fill there. Give you praise. Kind of like holding a note there. I worship you, Almighty God. You could even probably do it here after the A minor. Okay, so I would recommend that one's really nice at the end of phrases, but play around with it, have fun. I did it right after I worship you at the beginning, and honestly it didn't sound that bad. I worship you, Almighty God. That sounded pretty good too. On the F. There is none like you. I worship you. So that's just to give you an idea of notes that are nice fill. So the B natural going to the C, our brains like that, and then the G, it just works really nice. So that would be an easy one. And then a lot of times you'll see if you're following the chorus, the person that asked the question, I'm not sure if you've went through the whole chorus, but we do give you a lot of left-hand patterns. That's what we focused on this year. We had a lot of requests for that. And you can use those left-hand patterns to fill up the space between chords so it doesn't feel like you're just like hanging out doing nothing. Okay, so if you wanted to check that out, again, that's in the toolkit. There's a few pages on left-hand patterns. So if you could do that bass octave we talked about. Worship you, Almighty God. It feels full. There is none like you. Okay, and I'm not having to put in the fill. But we could. Let's check it out. We'll do it at the end of the second line. I worship you, Almighty God. There is none like you. And you can keep going. Okay, so hopefully that's one that'll whet your appetite a little bit. Have some fun with that. Right-hand fills. But yeah, we have lots of left-hand fills in the course. We have walk-ups, walk-downs, turnarounds, lots of things to fill up that space using the left hand. Okay, so that was question number 7. So let's move on. Okay, we're going to get to, I'm just going to move over to my screen there. We're going to talk about the Nashville numbering system, and we're also going to talk about some time signatures. Gonna come over here so I can write a little bit better. Okay, so we had a question come through a couple of times this year, and it was just asking, how do I use the Nashville numbering system? What is it? So let's go through that together. So normally we've been talking about when we're in the key of C, we have the C major scale. Okay, and this is our reference point for everything. This tells us what kind of chords to make and which ones to land on, how to do walk-ups and walk-downs. This scale has been the foundation of everything that we do. Now, the Nashville numbering system, all it is it's numbers instead of letters. So if we give each of our scales a number, Okay, so this is our C major scale. We're giving each scale tone a number. It would look like this. When you look at a song that has Nashville, it would look like this. And I'm kind of writing them on top or beside to give you an idea. But instead of having the letters, so it wouldn't have C, it would have only numbers. Okay, so this would be 4, this would be 2M, 1, 5, you get the idea. Okay, so I'm just matching, anytime I see a C, I'm putting a 1. Okay, so if you come across a song that has all numbers, what you'd want to do is make your scale. So if you wanted to play it in the key of C, you would write out your C major scale. Underneath it, you would write out 1 through 7, repeating with the 1. And then you would just go over and fill in your letters. Okay, so let's say you had Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Okay, let's say this is your Amazing Grace over here. And it's got all the words, and there's no chords anywhere. All you would do is look at your chart and then write in your letters. Okay, so you would write in C, C over E, F, back to C, A minor. So the minor or anything that comes after here just goes with it. 2 minor, that would be D minor, and then G. And you could write it. Now the reason, you might be asking, well, why would we even have this? Why don't we just write the letters? Is because if you're playing somewhere and you're doing key changes, it's very, very helpful to have the Nashville, because instead of, let's say you're playing Amazing Grace with a band, and every single time you do a new verse, you want to go up a key. Instead of having 3 different pieces of paper and you're trying to flip them around, whatnot, you would print out one, it would have all the numbers on it, and then once you get good at it, once you're familiar with it, you can just use the numbers and play in any key. So you could, it gives you more flexibility in the moment. So if you're playing in C, and you're playing along and you've got it printed in C, and the song leader goes like this, and you have it in letters, you're in trouble because you have no idea what it is in the next key. However, if you're using your Nashville system, so it's got the numbers, and if you're familiar with the next key, you could just switch and you could play it in the next key with the same piece of music. So that's one reason that people like to use it. Another reason is it teaches you about theory. So if you see on here, we've got all these different letters. I'm just going to erase these so we can see better. We've got all of these different letters. All you're doing is one by one reading it. Okay? It's kind of like reading a book. You're just starting from the left and you're just reading it out loud with your fingers on the keyboard. If you use the Nashville number system, you're able to see the patterns in the music. So for example, if we had, let's erase this and we'll use a different one. When we were talking about walk-ups, the Nashville number system actually becomes really important, because you can memorize, okay, if I'm going from C to F, I can add in a walk-up that we talked about. And if you're just joining us, you can check that out, lesson 21, we talk about walk-ups. And you would know, okay, C to F. But then what if you're in a different key? You have to memorize every different pattern to know when to do a walk-up? That's crazy. That's going to take a long time. But if you can remember, if I'm on the first chord and I'm going to the 4th chord, anytime I have the first chord followed by the 4th chord, I can add in a walk-up. So the number system, now you have that skill in every single key. Once you learn how to play in different keys, you know how to do a walk-up in every key, because if I'm playing the first chord and I'm going to the 4th chord in the scale, I can add a walk-up. Instead of memorizing it 12 different times, C to F, D flat to G flat, D to A, right? Or D to G, sorry. So that's the number system. If you have letters and you want numbers, you can translate it that way. And if someone hands you numbers and you don't know what to do, just write your scale at the top, and then you can write in the letters. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question. We are going to be talking about this in depth this year. We are going to be talking about keys, how to play in different keys other than C, and how it's all related to each other. So this is just a brief overview of the Nashville number system, but hopefully that answers your question. And definitely check out future lessons this year because we're really focusing on that side of things this year. Okay, so that was the question, what is the Nashville numbering? Okay, and then I showed you on the song. Okay, good. The next question that we had was, what is the difference between time signatures? Specifically, the person gave the example 3/4 and 6/8. So we haven't really gotten too much into theory in the gospel, because I know a lot of people who want to play gospel want to just start playing, and theory seems unnecessary. But I'm going to take the time and answer this question today in detail. So at the beginning of all our songs, at the top, I'll always put the time signature for you guys. So it could say 4/4 or 3/4. We haven't done 6/8, but that is another time signature that's very common. There's even 2/4. Oops, 2/5. Not 2/5. 2/4. The most common ones we see in gospel music are 4/4 and 3/4, and also to some extent 6/8. What this fraction tells us is how many beats are in a group. So if you're reading classical music, we call it a measure. So how many fit in a box before we go to the next box? In this case, we have 4 beats in a measure or in a group. And you can see here, everything lines up in groups of 4. Okay? You can see this one has 2 and 2, but it still makes the 4. This song, I Worship You Almighty God, is in 4/4. And you can see that very clearly when I write the slashes. Okay? The importance of that when you're playing is that the first note or the first chord of each group needs to be stronger than all of the other notes. So if we play this C, we would want to play I worship you, Almighty God. There is none like you. You can see they're in groups of 4. And the song naturally feels like that. So if you tried to sing it where, this one is stronger and this one is stronger, it's going to sound really strange. You're doing it probably without even noticing. So it'd be like, I worship you, Almighty God. It just doesn't make sense. So our bodies naturally find that flow. I 1, 2, 3, 4. I 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So some people call that giving weight. Okay, putting a little bit of extra weight on the beginning of the group. And like I said, we haven't talked about this in the class because you're already doing it naturally. I can almost guarantee you. But that's what a time signature tells you. So if you didn't know how the song sounded and it said 4/4 and you could see groups like that, that would give you a hint of how the song goes as well. Okay, so that top note or the top number here tells you how many beats in a measure. So if we go back now and we look at 3/4, okay, the top note would tell us it's in groups of 3. Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace. See how the punctuations are? How sweet the sound. Everything's in groups of 3. I've heard people play Amazing Grace in 4/4 by accident. And the drummer gets very confused, but yeah, every song has a time signature for a reason. So yeah, that would be the 4/4 and the 3/4. So, 1 slash equals 1 beat. It's either in groups of 3 or groups of 4. Now the person had asked, what's the difference between 3/4 and 4/4? Now this is a bit of a more complex question, but I'm going to answer it quickly. And again, this could be many lessons explaining it in detail. But if you have 3/4, what this tells us is that there are 3 beats, and each beat is a quarter note. Okay, so that's a slash. A slash is a quarter note. So amazing, quarter note, quarter note, quarter note. Just each one is a beat, a pulse. Okay, so 3/4 would look like this. 1, 2, 3, and then separate group. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that would be 3/4. 6/8 means that there are 6 beats, but each beat is not a quarter note. It's not a slash. It's an 8th note. That's a funny looking 8th note, but yeah, kind of like that. Okay, and so 6/8 would look like this. Now I'm connecting these together because when you have more than one 8th note, you just put a little beam on the top. So this is like I said, this is more of a technical theory question, but we would have 6 8th notes and then a measure, and then we'd have 6 more 8th notes. Now the difference is how you're playing the beats. So if you are playing in 3/4 time, we talk about 1 and 2 and 3 and when we talk about subdivisions, walk-ups, all of that, you can go back through lesson 21 through lesson 35, I think. We talk about subdivisions. So if you have a 4 at the bottom, that's what you're doing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, because everything is kind of in groups of 2, right? It'd be like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So if they had 8th notes, it would look like this. The subdivisions are different. If you have 6/8, and again, whoever this was, feel free to send me an email. We can go over this in more detail. But it's in groups of 3, and it goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the accents go here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we couldn't play Amazing Grace with 6/8. It would be, I don't even know if I can pretend to do it. So amazing, that's 3/4. It would be amazing grace, how sweet the sound. It just doesn't work. But some songs do have that pattern of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and when we get there, I'll definitely show you guys an example. But that's the answer. It has to do with the pulses, which beat is more important than the others. Okay, so I left that one to the end because I knew that was a little bit out of the realm of where we've covered so far, but I know I've seen her question twice, so I wanted to make sure that I went over that today. And again, if that doesn't make sense, just send me an email, and I'd be happy to explain that in further detail. Okay, so that was how do time signatures work, why are they important, and the difference between 3/4 and 4/4. Now, or 3/4 and 6/8. Now, the last one I want to go over is, and this is a question I've gotten a lot, is how do I play background music? And I announced it last week. We were going to do it on the 25th, August 25th. But we've actually had a change in our schedule. We're going to do it next week. Okay, excuse my arm. So I'm going to do a whole lesson on this next week. If you want to just sit at the piano and you want to just play. Super unattainable, but it's not. Okay, so we've talked about the Nashville system, which is actually going to help us a little bit next week, talking about, we're going to talk about chord progressions. We're going to talk about right hand things. We're going to talk about, how to make it smooth. We're going to talk about all of that. So we're going to do that next week instead, because I'm going to be here live and I want to be able to answer all of your questions live about that one. So we're going to talk about how do I make background music. So if you're in a service, or one thing that I got asked to do as a young person was like dinners. So I'd have like a fundraising dinner and they're like, you know how to play the piano. Can you just play for 2 hours? And as like a 16-year-old, I'm like, 2 hours of classical practice? Like that would be days and weeks and months. But thankfully, this way of doing background music, you don't have to actually play a bunch of songs in a row. There's a way you can improvise it, use your scale to your advantage, use a couple of the fills, use some of the left-hand patterns, and it just sounds like you're playing something that's really a song, and it sounds really impressive, but it's just playing with your scale. It's a little bit of math and counting. Single-digit numbers, don't worry. And you can make the most beautiful music. It'll also give you some tips on if you want to write your own music, if you want to write your own song. So we're going to go over a lot next week. It's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you're here. And I'll update that in the group with the proper dates there. So next week, what's the date for that? 18th? August 18th, we will go over the background music. And then on the 25th, we'll go over our last request night. Okay? So the easy answer for this is, how do I play background music? Pick a slow song that you're really good at, like this one, and just play it slowly while they're talking. So they're like, our announcements for this week. Don't forget, we've got the ladies' luncheon, 6 p.m. on Friday. Make sure you bring a friend. Right? You can just play a slow song in the background. But I'm going to show you guys some definite tricks and just lay it all out. I've had a lot of people ask me over the years, even as a teenager, this is something I'm really passionate about, improvising and making up your own sounds, and just being able to play beautiful music without hours and hours of practice. So I'm really excited to show you guys that next week. All right, so that's what I had for the questions in the Facebook group. I went back on YouTube and looked through some of the questions that people had put in. So if you have any other questions, or my answer gave you a new question, please put it in the comments, because I would love to do another one of these. Let me know if you guys would like that, if this has been valuable to you in any way. And I'd like to do the next one live so we can answer some questions on the spot. But please put that in the comments if you would like me to do another one, and also what questions you would like. Next week, like I said, we're going to go over background music. I'm going to show you guys improvising, chord progressions, making up your own songs, all of that we're going to cover. It's going to be a really good time next week. And then the following week is our last Request Fest. We're going to be doing CeCe Winans songs. That was the one that got second place in the voting on the group. So we did Hezekiah Walker, we did Andre Crouch, and now we're going to do CeCe Winans for our last one. So I got a couple really nice songs for you guys on the last one. And then stick around, because next year, I'm in school year, in September, we're starting fresh again. We're going to be doing brand new stuff. We're going to be doing new lessons, and we're going to keep on going. So this is going to be free. It's always going to be free. The PDFs are free. Free. I just want you guys to have this available to you. And if you do want to get a copy of the lead sheet or the chord chart that we went over today, you can go to our Facebook group. I'll put the link to that in the description, and just go into files. That was from lesson 5, I believe. I worship you, Almighty God. You can check that out, as well as all the ones from last year are there archived, so you can download. So thank you guys for joining me tonight for question and answers. I hope you had a wonderful Friday. As this is playing on YouTube, I'm probably at conference singing my heart out. So we're definitely having a good time, but we weren't able to be here live tonight. So I hope you guys got some value from this, and I will see you live next week for that special one. Have a great night, everybody. Bye.